Now we've moved over to the Drive Files tab, and we're going to discuss some of the different information that can be found within the Drive Files tab and some of the different abilities with actions that can be taken on Drive Files within the ManagedMethods platform. So here you're going to be taking a look at the various drive files found within the domain. This will not be every single drive file. The ManagedMethods platform goes back initially about 30 days, and then it's going to be everything moving forward. So as new files are created, those will be scanned for risks. As existing files are modified, those files will be scanned for risk. As share permissions are changed on documents, those files will be scanned for risk and reappear here. So do keep in mind it's not every single file, but it is a lot of the more active files within the environment. Files that do contain risk or malware are going to be retained again for a longer period of time, and again it's going to be 90 days in this case. First thing I'm going to do is drop off this filter here so we get a few more files appearing. When we're taking a look at any of the files here within the Drive Files tab, the first thing you'll notice is that there's a blue person icon next to the name of the files. That's going to indicate to you right away that that file is owned by an internal user. If you ever see a gold person icon, that's going to indicate to you that that file is owned by somebody who's not part of your domain directly, so it's been shared into the domain in some way, either to that user specifically or maybe with a global link share or something of that sort. You can always click into the name of the file itself to take a look at the basic information here. So you're going to see things like who created this file, when did this file last get modified, what domain does this file originate from, who's the actual owner of the file, what's the file type. The shares section here would show any user-to-user shares. Now this file is not being shared to any users specifically, but it is being shared via a global link share, and that's going to be denoted up here in the top right-hand corner. So any icons you see up here in the top right-hand corner is going to indicate to you that this file is being shared in some sort of way here. I'm going to go ahead and click off this file here for a moment and come down to a file that is being shared with another user here. So here we can see that there's going to be two separate sections for shares. There's going to be the internal shares and the external shares. So anything that's within the domain will be listed here, and these again are those user-to-user shares where somebody types in that person's name when they're sharing the document directly, that person's email ID there. In this case, this file is being shared to an external domain here in this case, so this Microsoft domain here, not part of the domain directly, and in this case it's also being shared with edit access denoted with this pencil icon here. The holder section is going to tell you who's holding that file and where. In this case it's being held within the My Drive of this particular user. Risk section here is going to give you an idea of the risks associated with this particular file. Now not all files will contain risk, but files that do contain risk will have this information. Again, the risk tab is going to be the best way to go ahead and handle those various risks that you do run across. On the malware side here, if there is anything that is flagged as malware, you'll see that reflected here directly. In this case, there's no malware. Clicking off that file here, you can again see that just the high-level information. And if you come over to the Shared With column here, this is going to give you further insight into how files are being shared. So I mentioned there that that globe icon there is going to indicate that the file is being shared with a global link share. So this globe icon here will indicate either it's being shared with view or edit permissions, and anyone who has the link to this file would either have that view or edit access to the file there directly. You can always hover over the file and it will give a tooltip here, giving you an idea of exactly how it's being shared. Further down here, this chain link looking icon here, this is going to indicate that the file is being shared within the domain via a link share, again with either view or edit permissions. Again, if you mouse over it, you'll see that reflected here directly. And the user-to-user shares here will be reflected with gold to indicate it's being shared to someone who's outside the domain, blue here to indicate it's being shared with somebody inside the domain. And again, those are going to be the user-to-user shares specifically. Next up there will be the Actions column, and this will allow you to take action on the files that you're seeing here within the Drive Files tab. The very first action here is going to be Quarantine. Quarantine is going to go ahead and allow you to break the share permissions on that file and then transfer ownership over to the admin of the ManagedMethods platform. When you do quarantine something, a quarantine tag will be applied to the file, and then this red sort of trash can looking icon is going to change into a green restore icon here, allowing you to restore back that file if it was a case where you've quarantined it. Okay, this has been reviewed, we don't need to go ahead and store this any further, or go ahead and have this quarantined any further. You can go ahead and transfer that file back to the end user there. Because again, that quarantine is going to go ahead and transfer the ownership over to the admin. It's going to break all the share permissions, and the file lives in a folder called cam_quarantine until you decide to do something with it there. You can always then download the files to take a look at them directly. That will download a local copy for you to take a look at. You can delete the files. You can get rid of them entirely if you'd like. Do keep in mind this delete will not delete anything from any backup solutions you might be running, whether that be Google Vault or a third-party backup solution. But it will remove access for anyone within the domain, as well as remove it from the list here within the Drive Files tab. The Unshare here allows you to go through and break shares on files. If I go ahead and click on that, you'll see here that this file is being shared with the public on the web. Anyone who has the link to this would have edit access, but I can come through here, click on this, and go ahead and actually break that share directly. And for files that are being shared in multiple different ways, you can go through and select specific share permissions to break those individual permissions off if necessary there. Next up, for files that are owned by internal users here, there is this Audit File Activity. If we go ahead and click on this, this allows you to download the history of the file here up to 6 months, and you can see some of the different activity types that will be displayed here. And this will always download as a CSV report. So you can see who created this file potentially, who more recently edited this file, who is viewing this file, did the file get renamed, did anyone print the file, download it. So as you can see here, there's a lot of different activity types that you can take a look at and dive into further, though certainly if you want just to get a whole picture of what was going on with the file, all would likely make the most sense there. And then lastly there's going to be a share via email that allows you to share the high level information on this file to somebody else if necessary, with the ability to choose to mask the risk or not as well. Furthermore here, there are 2 actions that can be taken in bulk. If we come over here and click on any of the checkmark boxes, or in this case selecting all these files, you'll see here there's a bulk unshare and a bulk delete. The bulk unshare here allows you to go through and break all the share permissions on the files you've selected. You can break off a specific user on all the files you selected, or break off different link share permissions as well too. So you can see those will be displayed here as well. The bulk delete here, same idea, allows you to go ahead and bulk delete multiple files. And again, this can be done on up to 500 files at a time here. There are a lot of ways to search and filter when it comes to the Drive Files tab. Lots of different parameters that can be used, and lots of different options with filters. A very popular filter would be something like this, looking at all the files that are being shared to the outside here. This can be extremely helpful because this is a case where sometimes, unfortunately, we do see cases where people will share files in incorrect ways, whether it be something like a transcript being shared with a global link share, or other sensitive documents being shared with people who are outside the domain where they shouldn't really have access, personal Gmail accounts, etc. So this can be very helpful to give you a good idea on what's going on with some of those various files out there. Again, it won't be every single file, but it'll be a lot of those more recently accessed files, and certainly can be very helpful. And you can apply various searches on top of this to really focus your attention further if necessary there. There is one other component of the Drive Files tab, and that's going to be the live file search. The live file search is going to operate a lot like the live email search. This is going to allow you to do a live API call throughout the entire domain. The only limitation on this is it can't find files that have been completely deleted out of the domain entirely. But if it's out there, they should go ahead and locate that file directly. You can also use this to dive through the files of one individual user. Certainly we've seen people use this if there's a case where there's a student or a staff member who seems to be storing a lot of information, where there are certain staff members that might be cause for concern, or students that might be cause for concern, where you need to dive into their files directly and take a look. This will allow you to go ahead and do that here. I'm going to go ahead and run a pretty basic search here to begin with, but if I go ahead and just type in the admin account here, and I'm also going to type in the admin account here as well too, because I just want to look at all the files that are owned by this one individual user here. I could also drop off this time frame filter if I wanted to. If I go ahead and press search here, it's going to go ahead and pull up those files. You'll be able to see all those files listed here directly. So we can see the name of the file, we can see who the owner of that file is, when did this last get modified, file size, type, the ability to download that file if necessary here. And if you do click on the name of the file here, again, there's going to be a download button here. It'll give you an idea of how the file is being shared as well too. So we can see all of the various permissions in here listed as well too of what's going on with this file directly. And then there is also the ability to take action to delete files out of the domain entirely if necessary. That's what this delete button will do. The download CSV report here will just download this basic information we're seeing here as a CSV report. And you can go far beyond the 25 that are shown here initially. As long as there are files available, you can keep going back as far as there are files. And that's where you can use that time frame filter if you know that the file's 2 or 3 years old that you need to go locate or something of that nature. And there's a lot of additional parameters you can layer on top of this, such as looking for audio video files or files of a specific type or nature there. So lots of parameters you can use to search for within this live file search. Can be very effective at locating files of different kinds there, or in a case of where maybe someone's misusing storage space, you could go through and delete users' files if necessary as well too. So that's going to cover the Drive Files tab. Next up, we're headed over to Shared Drives, and we'll take a look at some of the information over there.